He played in 1,181 NHL games over 17 seasons, where he made the playoffs 14 times and played in 141 postseason games. He won 2 Stanley Cups as a player, was named to the United States Hockey Hall of Fame in 2017, and has been the director of player personnel for the Canucks over the past 3 seasons. He moves back behind the bench now as an assistant coach. He is Scott Young, and he joins us here on the Canucks Insider podcast. Scott, pretty exciting times for you, man, heading back behind a bench. And I guess we could start right there. What was your kind of thought process of getting back into coaching? Because you had a pretty good spot here as director of player personnel for the last 3 years.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed my time on the management side of things. It was basically because Adam Foote got the job, and he started to kind of introduce the idea to me earlier in the summer. He kind of poked me a little bit with it and said, "Hey, what do you think about coaching?" And I said, "Well, I am at the point in my life and my personal life right now that, you know what, I would really, really consider that. I would enjoy doing that." So it just kind of progressed through the summer, and with the other hires of Kevin and Brett, and it ended up working out, and I'm thrilled about it. I'm thrilled about moving to Vancouver. I love the city, and I can't wait to start working with all the players.
Well, I think one thing that Canucks fans are very excited about when you come behind the bench is your playoff pedigree. Like I said in the intro, 14 of 17 seasons when you played, you made the playoffs. I guess just talk me through that. That's a hell of a run to make the playoffs that much during your playing days in the NHL.
Well, I guess in the beginning when I was with Hartford, there weren't too many teams that didn't make the playoffs in a 21 team league. But then what I was really fortunate to go through was my time playing with the Penguins. It was short, but we won the cup. And that experience for me, I think, just made a world of difference. I mean, as a player, as a playoff performer, learning how to win, learning that it was actually possible to win. Being in Hartford, we had a lot of good players, and you look at these players and what they've done in their management careers, their time after they retired, and with other teams, we just couldn't seem to get out of the first round. But so at that time, after a couple of years in Hartford, it just felt like going home, being home for 2 months and still seeing hockey on television. You can't believe it. You just they're still playing hockey, and until you go through it. And then I went through it with the Penguins, and then it was a real eye opener, and to the commitment level that you had to have. It changed my whole career. I trained harder. I just wanted it so badly again. So I give a lot of credit to that year, learning from players, Mario and Paul Coffey and Kevin Stevens and these guys. That really kind of, I thought, set the tone for the rest of my career.
What's it like when you're in the moment and you're just teammates with these guys that are ultimately NHL legends? If you could take yourself back to that time, do you know what you're in for at the time? Or you kind of just these are just your teammates? It must be a weird thing. Mario Lemieux, you're playing next to him. Do you know that this guy's a legend at the time? Or are you kind of just a buddy of his? How does that work?
You know what? You're kind of aware of someone like Mario. It's I don't know. It's hard to explain. He's a teammate. You're not. You can't enter the room every day in awe of him because you're a teammate. But you're fully aware of this kind of aura around him. This and how good he is, and it was just a real privilege to play with a guy like Mario. And I see him now every once in a while, and on the golf course in the summer, and he's just a class act. And that was a tremendous 6 months of my life.
That's awesome. To take it back a little bit, I'm just kind of curious about this, and I think a lot of fans are too, because we love hearing stories about Hartford. When I do end up hearing stories from former players, they speak so highly of what it was like to play for there. So what are your kind of best memories of just being a Whaler? Because it was before my time, man. I'd never watched the Whalers on TV. So I got to hear from you. What was it like kind of living there and being a Whaler for a little while?
Well, it's amazing to look at the players that we had on our team. We had Ronnie Francis and Kevin Dineen and Ray Ferraro and Dave Tippett and you Dean Evison, all these guys that have been so successful, and Mike Liut. Um, we should have been so much better, but they called us like the Forever 500 Whalers at the time. And we couldn't get past Montreal in the first round or Boston. They were always loaded. They were going to cup finals or winning the cup. But when you're with a team early in your career and you're really young, and I think even those guys, they were older than me at the time, but they still were young. There's always great memories. It's kind of before there's a lot of kids involved. So you're really together a lot. You're hanging out a lot together. And I think any player in the league, when they look back at those early days of their career, if they've got a young team, I think there's a lot of great memories created with those guys, because it's you just look back and you say, oh yeah, that's kind of where it all started.
Well, that's so interesting. Like, you brought up some of those names of what they went on to do in hockey and other organizations, or even their post-playing careers or coaching, everything. Like, I have to imagine that team was probably one that something you take away from learning how to build a culture quite a bit. So now, kind of stepping into this role as an assistant coach here with the Vancouver Canucks, I guess building a culture is something that I think a lot of fans would love to see and love to see built throughout this year. And I think we've started to see it over the past couple of years here. How are you looking to add to that, and how much do you take away from your playing career about like how important a culture really is to a room?
Well, it is very important, and I think it really comes from from the top down, but also the players you have to have the players in the room that are leaders in the room, keep each other accountable. It's very important for the players in the room to take on that role. Coaches, create that as much as they can, but you're not in there at all times. And these players have to, take responsibility. And I think we have the players to do that. I think it's started to be created, especially since the bit of a run a couple of years ago with going into the playoffs and taking Edmonton to 7 games. They see what it could be, or what it's like to be in the playoffs, and the atmosphere in Vancouver, and it's really second to none. It's tremendous. And that's why it was so disappointing this year to not get there. But you just it has to be a daily commitment, and practice level has to be extremely high, and the details that you bring into practice. Like, I used to go into practice once I felt like I truly became a professional, which was after the Pittsburgh winning the cup. Then I felt like everything changed and my commitment level changed. It's like you think you're working hard, and then you see what it takes, and you see Paul Coffey going in between periods after, game 4 that he's just played 30 minutes in the second round, and he's doing push-ups and sit-ups and getting on the bike. And it's like, okay, I am not working hard enough. I need to change. And when you see those types of things, it changes your attitude, it changes your mentality. And when you go into practice every day and you try to just give it everything you have in practice, and it could be a 20-minute practice, but you never go through the motions, and you have to actually get yourself up for practices, then it just becomes muscle memory in games, and your body's used to it. Your body's just used to going all out and being prepared and being mentally prepared for every single game.
Yeah. And I mean, you're going to have to be doing a lot of those same things. You're getting right back in the swing of things now behind the bench at every practice, just for yourself to kind of get out there and be back in that kind of daily fight here. What's the excitement level for it, and just being, that close to the game? Like, I hear it from coaches a lot of the time saying that, and I think Foote talked about this when he was on the podcast, but like, this is as close as you can get to getting that feeling of playing again. It's getting back on that bench and being able to just, get that close to the action. Like, does that excite you quite a bit, the way I'm talking about it there, just being able to get back in that moment for you?
Oh, absolutely. Like, being behind the bench for games is so exciting. You get the adrenaline going. It's just like when you're a player, but you don't have the control of being out there to I found it. I mean, I even get a little bit of that when I was just going in and evaluating players over the years, just being in the building, up in the stands, never mind on the bench. But coming into Vancouver and being up in the box and being a part of some of the games when I'm in town, have something in you that you just start to tingle a little bit. The adrenaline gets going, and you get excited about it. And yeah, really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to working with the players, being on the ice, getting out there early with them, working on different things, and with our staff, with the Sedins and everybody. I imagine there'll be a lot of individual work in that way, before practice, after practice. So the whole package, I'm really looking forward to.
That's awesome. You brought up the Sedins, and I found it interesting when Footy brought that up that, you'd be doing some special projects with them and working with the players. And I just thought, like, man, the way you shot the puck, Scott, you would have been a hell of a guy to play with the Sedins back in your playing days. But now you get a chance to work with these guys and kind of be somebody at practice. You can work on special projects. Can you walk me through, like, the process of kind of getting started with this and how you want to come into this job and work with these players and what kind of specific things? You don't have to get into every drill, but kind of the thought of coming in and being that type of coach here on the bench and being able to be included in these special projects. How do you kind of want to approach this at the start?
Well, I think it's important for me to develop relationships with the players. I know a few of the players, and we're very shortly, within the next 24 hours, I'll be on a Zoom call with the number of the players and the staff. But it's developing the relationship first. But I want them. It's basically like when I was at BU, I was an assistant coach at BU, and I made it very clear. Anybody wants to work on anything, let's grab me. We're going out. And it was a different setup. We practiced at 3 p.m, and some of them had class at, in the morning, and then they'd want to go out at 9:30. And then someone else would want to come out at 9. And someone else would go on at 10. And I'd be on the rink all morning. And then we'd go back on for regular practice. So this will be different, but I want the comfort level to be there. To say, let's go out, let's work on this. We could work in small groups, or we could work with the individual stuff. It can be shooting, it be wall work. There's all kinds of things we can work on. And it might be something I suggest to a player. It might be something a player just wants to fine tune and get some reps in. Or it might be some 3-on-3 stuff. And the Sedins, obviously, with their just elite hockey background and knowledge, I've found it great working with them in my, I guess, prior role. I don't know how to say that right now because I'm in transition, but they've been excellent. I think we see things the same when we're at an Abbotsford game together, or I'm down in the coach's room at a Vancouver game, talking to them. I think we're on the same page, so it's going to be great to work with them.
Yeah, and we'll talk about your relationship with Adam Foote as well. Obviously, you played a good amount of years with him. Just your relationship kind of going into this, I'm sure that helped as you kind of step into this role as the assistant coach with the team. But what was it like playing with Foote and now kind of evolving now to being on a bench with him at this point?
Well, playing with him, he was just a hard guy to play against. As far as when for other teams, he was a nightmare because he just did anything he could possibly do to stop you. And he was really the ultimate type of playoff performer that you want on your roster. And he could shut down opposing, elite forwards, whether they were power forwards, whether they were strong, whether they were a little bit more skilled players. He had the ability to shut them down. And we were fortunate enough to be on that team. We met each other when I was with the Nordiques, and he came in as a rookie. I was new in Quebec, and we kind of grew together for a number of years. And then we ended up winning the Cup in '96. And it's quite an experience. He went on to win after. I went on to, I was on the St. Louis Blues team that played against him in the conference final when Bork was on the Avalanche. And we thought things in St. Louis at the time were really lining up for us because we had just swept Dallas. And Colorado I think they went to a 7-game series, and they lost Peter Forsberg his spleen had to be removed. So we're thinking, I'm thinking, I've been through this run before, and obviously you need to play the games and you never take anything for granted, but it kind of looked like things were lining up for us. But then Adam Foote And Patrick Waugh, I thought the whole team stood up, and Joe Sakic and everybody, but Footer really, really kind of shut down a couple of our big guys. And then, Patrick Waugh and net, who stood on his head. And it just obviously didn't work out for us and worked out for them. And he won another cup. So, but nothing but praise for Footer, winner. And to see how he's evolved over the years now and the way that he talks about players, treats players, I think it's amazing what he's kind of done on the psychological side of it. And that's why I think he's going to be a heck of a head coach.
Yeah, I think that's almost what I wanted to ask you about, was just kind of watching him evolve. And I think that's something that he talked about was, having conversations with Patrick Allvin throughout the year of potentially being ready to take on the role of being head coach. Now that he's at this point and built this staff together, how do you look at it as the assistant coach is kind of looking up to him to be the leader of this coaching staff? And maybe we can dive into the other assistants a little bit with Brett and Kevin, getting a chance to work with them, just now coming together and really seeing the staff evolve and grow together. What's the excitement level with this group of 4 guys now, and on top of other coaches that'll be helping as well?
Well, I think we believe in each other. To be honest, I didn't know Kevin before or Brett, but I believe in Footer. I really believe. I just being around him now you never know what a former player, or a guy that you played with is going to be like as a coach. And when I sat in I went out with him for dinner, and when I was in town and we talked about players, and I was, it was always nice in my player personnel role to come in and find out what was going on with the team firsthand, instead of just seeing what's going on television or a phone call. So I'd get to sit down and with Rick and with Footer and find out what's going on in the locker room. And that's where you really get educated and, kind of get behind the scenes and see behind the curtain a little bit. And I was amazed. I was just amazed how he dealt with players. Some coaches can be very negative and be, behind closed doors. He's not like that at all. He's very supportive of the players, and he looks for solutions. He doesn't just say, well, this guy can't do this or this guy. He looks for solutions. Okay, what are we going to do here? Why is he not playing to his capability? And I was really impressed with him and the way that he's gotten to this point. And we've went into it, which I won't go into, but we went into how he got here and why and everything he's gone through in his life to this point. And it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, we're excited to see it happen. And as you guys come together here, you mentioned you were an assistant coach with BU for a little bit. So I'm curious, looking back at your time there for the 4 years at BU, what do you think a strength was in your time as an assistant coach there? And is that something you want to bring here to the NHL level?
Yeah, I think it was just relationships with the players and having their trust level and like I said, going out, working with them as much as I could, having them being able to come to me with anything. And it's not just on ice stuff. The good thing, I'm not a big believer in saying, oh, when I played, but there are times you do have to say that, because that's what you learn from. It's not all, rosy because it sounds like you have a great career with all your stats and your games played. It was difficult. And I was a player that was very hard on myself. And I think I could have been a better player if I handled that better, in a different way. But I beat myself up all the time. And I'm very open about it. I'm willing to be vulnerable with the players, because you have to learn from your experiences, and they weren't all good. I mean, it's not an easy career. It's not an easy lifestyle, and there's a lot of pressure. And most of that pressure you put on yourself to do well. And sometimes that can backfire, and you can put too much pressure on yourself. So, yeah, you want to put pressure on yourself to do well. But if you're beating yourself up every day, that's not really the way to handle it. And that's what I struggled with. And, hopefully nowadays we have, team psychiatrists and psychologists and all this stuff to help out. Everything they have everything at their disposal to become the best player that they can be. But I want them to feel free to talk to me about these things because I'm going to be open and vulnerable with them.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's so important in today's NHL, and I think that's why Footy coming in and having this relationship with so many of these guys already is beneficial for you guys coming in here. I guess just my thoughts, kind of in the process of the day to day. How are you going to try and build those relationships right off the start? Because, like you mentioned, it sounds like it's something that's very important to you. And how do you kind of begin to do that as you come in here? I'm sure you mentioned there's a couple guys you know already, but what are some of the initial stages here? You mentioned some Zoom calls this week as well, so just kind of building on that. What's the kind of goal here to get started with all that?
Well, I'll end up talking to the player. I got to really want to see him face to face. I mean, there'll be some phone calls, there'll be some Zoom calls, but you want to. There's the introductory stuff, and then you have to earn their trust over time, and I think they'll realize pretty quickly with my personality that I'm on their side. It's and I'm not saying, of course, you have to be held accountable and. Not saying that the players are going to be running the show, all that stuff. I don't want anyone reading that into it, but I listen to players and agreeing or not, but I want to listen to them and take that feedback and try to apply it the right way. And I think it's important, to listen to the players and not just say, that's ridiculous. That's, or whatever, in your own head. I'm not saying you'd ever say it to a player, but you have to consider, one thing I've always said, and you hear this from the average person. I mean, I'm out in the Boston area and, or you might read it somewhere where when somebody loses their confidence and they're making $10 million or whatever they're making, or $6 million, whatever it is, and the average person says, don't give me this confidence crap. This is, you're making $6 million. It doesn't matter how much money you make. You're still a human being and you can lose your confidence. And I, coming from a player from me who lost my confidence a lot over my career, it doesn't matter what you're making. It doesn't make you a more confident if things are not going right for, 4 games, 5 games, whatever the number is. So you have to take that into consideration. Like, these guys are human beings. They're not robots.
Like the way you speak about your career, I'm curious how you overcame that, or did you have to retire and kind of look back at it to figure out how to not lose that confidence like that? Like, is that something that you've had to reflect on, or did you figure it out while you're playing, or how do you kind of look back at that now?
It was something that I realized while I was playing that it wasn't great. Sometimes it would motivate me to play harder and go to practice the next day and go at it harder and just be more determined. And sometimes it kind of ate away at me. And there was a couple times I was like almost like rock bottom, where I was like, okay. And then I had to think about how many of my friends that were working, whatever they were doing, they were in sales, they were in construction, and I had to realize, no one's feeling sorry for you. You're playing in the NHL. Like, who's going to feel sorry for you? Like, everybody wants to be you right now. Yeah. So let's get out of this. And that was kind of the thing that would lift me out of it. And that was a conversation that I had with a player in Pittsburgh that was sent down early on, who thought he should be, when I was in development in Pittsburgh, he was sent down early. And I had that conversation with him. And I said, how many of your friends want to be you right now? Like, you're a big time Penguins prospect, but so what? You got to spend a few weeks and, or a month in the minors. And he turned it around pretty quickly after that conversation. So it worked. But it's just ways of looking at things, right? It's just different ways of looking at things. And unfortunately, it took me a while to get to that point. But again, there's a lot of ups and downs. It's a tough year. There's a lot of competition, obviously. And hopefully I can help with the players.
Yeah, I think that's I think fans will enjoy kind of hearing that point of view on it and how that's something that you're looking to bring here to the staff. I think something that's just been consistent throughout these players, and even talking to Footy throughout the offseason, but specifically I feel this from the players, is after what just happened this past season, there's such a hunger to get back to what we just saw a couple of years ago with the playoff running to get there. I have to assume from a coach's perspective, that's got to be pretty exciting to just recognize the hunger that these players have to get back, and how you guys are going to hit the ground running next season, and really look to bounce back from what this past year was. So for you to kind of just know that this group of players just wants it that bad, how excited are you to work with this group now because of what happened last season?
Yeah, and they absolutely should be. Not that I know there's been some change in the roster, but just, the excitement in the city and playing. When you play in the playoffs, there's nothing you want to do more than is to just continue to play in the playoffs and push further and go further. And then to not make it, it kind of has this just empty feeling, like we just played this whole season. I won't say for nothing, but it feels like it as a player when it ends, because you're not in the playoffs. Like, what do we just play this year for? And that might be kind of overdoing it, but that's kind of that empty feeling at the end of that type of season. And nobody wants to feel that. Nobody. And you don't want to let, I remember being, we won when I was with St. Louis, we won the President's Trophy, and we lost in the first round to San Jose. And, you always have a year end, you get together and you have a couple beers. And we literally found a place where we could hide because we didn't want to be around fans, because we just felt like we disappointed them so much. And we didn't want to be running into people because it was kind of like we were embarrassed by it. Like, this shouldn't have, and that was being in the playoffs and losing in the first round. Because it was just so much more was expected. And that's like, your player's mentality is you just want to crawl into a corner at that point, and it takes a little while to get over before you begin your summer and get ready for the next season.
Yeah. With the past few years here being with the front office group, and I know it seemed like Jim Rutherford was kind of the first one to give you an opportunity in Pittsburgh in a player development role. What have you liked about just kind of building a relationship with these guys and having them be your bosses for the past kind of 6-7 years here?
They've been great. Like, Jim's been awesome. So is Patrick. I got to know Patrick when I was working with Pittsburgh. He was originally the director of amateur scouting there. And we had great discussions about players. We didn't always agree, but we had great discussions and we had good respect for each other in those discussions. And Jim's been like, they want to win so badly. They come from a winning culture. In Pittsburgh, they won the 2 cups there right before I got there. And they want to win. And they're willing to, basically test the waters in any possible way to win, which that's all you can really ask for when you're on a team. You want to be on a team that management says, we're here to win cups, and that's the only goal. And of course, it's difficult. It's really difficult. And obviously, last year was kind of a funky year with all the stuff that went on. But that's the goal. And, they're not into tearing stuff down and rebuilding and going through all, they want to win. So I like the aggressiveness. And, so you see some organizations, maybe they go at things a little more methodical, they're a little slower with some decisions. But I like the fact that we have an aggressive group that's just we're going to be the best we can be.
Hey, I wanted to ask a little bit about the 1988 Olympics where you played defense for USA. And so if I got this right, you played a little bit of defensive forward when you were young, but you were mostly a forward in the NHL. How did it come about to be a defenseman at the Olympics? Like, did someone have to ask you to do this? Did you offer to do this? Can you walk me through this? Because I think I heard you tell a little bit of the story at your Hall of Fame induction speech, but I just wanted to hear it again from your point of view, like to play defense for USA at that 88 Olympics.
Yeah, so it kind of came out of the blue. Ben Smith, who was an assistant coach at the time. He ended up being a coach for the women's Olympic team, heavily involved in USA Hockey, but he was an assistant coach at BU, and he was an assistant coach on the Olympic team in '88. And he's the one that brought up that because I was a good skater, I could, backwards, forwards, whatever. I was a good skater. He thought that I'd make a better defenseman. So that's kind of how it started. I can't say I was completely on board at first. I remember playing an exhibition game against Calgary and feeling like I came out of it extremely frustrated because I didn't make a lot of tape-to-tape passes. I was used to, and it was, of course, we were playing against professionals at the time, so it was a little tougher making the jump. And I remember being very frustrated and kind of voicing it to Ben after the game and telling him I think I played terrible tonight. I was, anyway, he said, you know what? Everybody thought you played great because you got the puck out of our end. And I was looking for, I was looking to zip it on guys' tape and be clean. And again, it was against an NHL team, so it was a little bit of a jump. But I mean, it worked out. I can't say I was the greatest defensive defenseman, but I could skate. In today's world, I would have been taught probably a lot more detail with all the video and the things, stick placement. But I had good enough feet where I could do it. And then it really helped me out in the future because I could play the point on the power play in the NHL, which was great. And every once in a while, I'd go back if we were down a goal. I might go back for the last couple of minutes and be on the. I actually ended up really enjoying it. I did really like it, but it took a little bit. And to be able to play both, to a certain extent, it was really valuable. I think it helped me out a lot.
Yeah, I think the hardest part must be like, as a forward, you want to make a lot of noise in a game, and the defenseman, you just want to, not have your name called a certain time. That must be a weird adjustment. And that kind of sounds like what you were talking about when you finished your first game there. You're talking to the coach, I feel, if your name's not called in a bad way, it's defense. You do a good job.
Well, yeah, and we didn't have analytics back then, but maybe the analytics for that game would have been really good. But I don't know. It didn't feel good because I was used to making tape-to-tape plays, passes. So, and I loved playing point on the power play because, you distribute and I just set up for one-timers, and I love to shoot the puck. So it ended up being, the coaches trusted me more because I had actually played a year of defense.
Awesome. Scott, we'll wrap up with a couple just kind of quick ones at the end. I just wanted to know who or what got you into hockey as a child? Like, what was the thing that drew you in? Was it a person? Was it something about the sport? What kind of just drew you in, if you could take it back to little Scotty running around the streets?
I think I was 5 years old, and my dad was over at a town next door having a beer in the bar with Tommy Williams, which I don't know if you'd know that name at all. Tommy Williams was a Hartford Whaler. I think he might have been the first American ever drafted, or in the first. I'm not sure the total, but he just was in the town over. And they were talking, and he said, how old's your son? And he said, 5 years old. And he said, well, why don't you get him in to learn to skate? They have a learn to skate program over in the next town over. So my parents put me in to learn to skate for a week. They paid for it. And the first day I wanted to quit because I was falling down every day. Every time I stepped on the ice, I fell down, and you're holding onto a chair. And they said, you know what? We're not going to force you to do this, but we've paid for the week. And my parents didn't have a ton of money. They said, we paid for the week. Can you just do it for the rest of the week? And by the end of the week, that was it. I wanted to play. I wanted to play hockey. So that was it. Luckily, they didn't let me quit on day one.
I was going to say Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday must have gone really well for you.
I don't think I was very good, but I mean, I just ended up liking it more. So.
Yeah. Hey, you got a chance to see Vancouver fans in the playoffs. You got a chance to see what this city looks like a little bit when it's going crazy. For you to kind of come into a market like this that has not won a Stanley Cup, what would it mean to you to be able to be part of a group that can do that to Vancouver? Because we know the fans are, I think, the hungriest in the league to one day be able to have a Stanley Cup champion here in Vancouver.
Oh, it would mean the world. There's nothing better than delivering to the fans that are as passionate as Vancouver fans. And for me to see the playoff, the first round of the playoffs, the fans are climbing up statues, hanging up the white flag on that. Like it was amazing. Like I was blown away. And I have played against Vancouver in the playoffs, but I didn't see it from that side. You're in the locker room, then you're on the bus, and you don't see that side of it. So it would mean everything to just watch that town or that city just go off the rails. um, because they're so passionate, and just walking around during that time and having people come up to us and approach us, and there's nothing better than making people happy.
All right, final question for me. It might be the easiest, it might be the hardest. If you see this appetizer on a menu, you order it every time. What's your favorite appetizer?
Oh God. Appetizer. Jeez, I don't know. It used to be shrimp, but I'm not nowadays. I got to say, as a main menu, if I see beef Wellington on the menu, I order beef Wellington. You don't see it much. I don't know appetizers, but I'll go with that.
Beef Wellington, number one. All right, love it. Scott, appreciate you taking some time today and staying a little bit extra with me here as well. So excited to see you back behind the bench here. I know you got a busy week talking to players, coaches, you guys getting rolling here. But Canucks fans are excited to see you behind the bench and see what you can do cooking up some special projects with the Sedins here throughout the season. So
Excellent.
looking forward to it. And thanks a ton for taking some time today joining us on the pod.
All right, thank you.